Hong Kong is home to around 30,000 Indians and Pakistanis. People from the Indian subcontinent have been coming to Hong Kong since the early days of colonial power in the territory. Some have concerns that after the handover, they might not be as welcome as they were under the British. Claire Penketh reports.
Indian soldiers were brought over from British India by the colonial powers in the early days of the occupation of Hong Kong. They were based in Kowloon, in what has now become Kowloon Park. Quite a significant number of Indian soldiers, around 4,000, were stationed here. During the Second World War, they were made prisoners of war during the Japanese occupation of Hong Kong. They left the territory after the end of the Second World War, before Indian independence in 1947. They also played a vital role in the police force.
Well, most of the Sikhs didn't really come until they were brought over as policemen, and the first group of them came over in 1865. And they worked out so well that they brought more of them. And then what happened was, after they would serve their term with the police or whatever, they would often stay on as guards, or then they often joined the prison service.
That tradition continues today, with Sikh doormen and security guards still very much in evidence throughout Hong Kong. But it wasn't only in the military and as policemen that Indians came to Hong Kong. They also came as merchants. H.N. Modi left his mark on the territory by donating almost $200,000 towards the founding of the University of Hong Kong in 1911. But his money came originally from operating as an opium trader in the 1860s.
Many of the original traders who came here were Parsees, and Parsees are Zoroastrian sun worshippers who originally came from Persia and settled in India. And when they came to Hong Kong, they were often already very well off. Now, not all of them, but some of the Indian traders were the go-betweens between the British and the Chinese. And they would form the link and help with the trade. And they were known as being very honorable and also having very good social skills. And so they got along very well with the British.
Here at the Sikh temple in Happy Valley, the women attend their midweek prayer meeting. Around the complex, children and elders congregate. Jagat Singh's Panu's father came here with the British Army in 1920. He, for one, is concerned about the close links between the Sikhs and the British.
There is a possibility that because we have been associated with the British Empire, and we might find some difficulties. Because the Indian community, they are more concerned about their livelihood. And they will be, they are thinking that they might not be able to secure more jobs as they had been getting during the British time.
But such concerns are dismissed by the head of the Indian Chamber of Commerce.
The whole process of the handover has now taken 15 years to complete. And I feel that for those of us who had any problems about or optimism about the handover in the future, they would have packed up and gone by now. The very fact that 99% of the community is still here means they are optimistic and they want to continue to live and work in Hong Kong.
Around 30,000 Indians and Pakistanis live in Hong Kong. Despite the relatively small size of the community, 0.2%, their export business accounts for almost 10% in the territory. K.M. Das and his wife live with his son Sunny and his family in Chim Sa Choi. He came over from Bombay in the late 60s because it was easy to emigrate.
At that time, 1969, Hong Kong was the only country which was allowing us to enter Hong Kong without any visa, without any working permit, without anything. Actually, the Hong Kong was very good in early days, you see. It was quite cheap. Now, thinking the standards of living now, at that time in 1960s, 70s, it was very cheap. And we used to save a lot of money at that time.
So you stay only one night in Manila?
He set up his own travel business in 1984 with his son, catering mainly for the Indian community. Mr. Das Sr. says the secret of the Indian success story lies in their ability to integrate.
you will find that our community, the Indians, the new generation can speak very good Cantonese. Sometimes Cantonese people are wondering that how come you can speak so good in Cantonese than other communities, you see. And because we can adjust first, because we are business-minded people, very broad-minded, so we can adjust very quickly.
His son, who has one toddler and another on the way, says he's optimistic about the future in Hong Kong, as far as the Indian community is concerned, but he does have contingency plans.
My wife is from Philippines. She's a resident of Philippines, and I'm keeping an eye on the Philippines, and I know that the economy is also coming up, you know, and I wouldn't mind investing in that economy and moving there if the things don't work out here in Hong Kong.
As far as the Indian community is concerned, so long as there are no major changes, it appears they will continue to live and thrive in Hong Kong. However, as the campaign to get British passports shows, there are deep-rooted concerns among Hong Kong's ethnic minorities about the future.
One of the issues that has dominated the Indian and Pakistani communities in Hong Kong in recent years is the campaign for British passports. There were fears that as many as 9,000 people could be left stateless after the handover. But as Claire Pencath reports again, the majority have no wish to settle in Britain.
Neville Shroff and his family belong to a small yet highly influential community with its own distinct religion. The Parsees have made Hong Kong their home for generations. The Star Ferry was founded by a Parsee in 1872, but they were traders in this region even before the British took over Hong Kong. Later, the Rudowskis, another Parsee family, founded a sanatorium in 1949 in Happy Valley because of the tuberculosis epidemic. The Parsees, like many Indians, have been great philanthropists. The Parsee community numbers only around 200 members. Neville Shroff himself runs a highly successful multi-million-dollar garment and household business and says he can't see his family leaving Hong Kong.
Myself, yes, I am infinitely optimistic, actually, to the future of the Hong Kong SAR, and from myself and my family's point of view, we will be here for a very long time to come.
This is the house that Harry Leela built. Its palatial interior can accommodate all 101 members of his family. And family is important. He and his 5 brothers run a multi-million-dollar hotel chain. The clan gathers at home for drinks before Sunday supper. Harry Leela has lived in Hong Kong for 66 years. He started off as a tailor just after the war and is credited with inventing the concept of a suit made up in 24 hours. He has the ear of Chinese leaders as a Hong Kong affairs advisor to China. He was consulted during the drafting of the Basic Law, and he was on the selection committee that picked Tung Chee Hwa as chief executive designate. Despite his high profile, he warns fellow members of the Indian community against getting involved in politics.
I have been advising them not to get into politics because we are only 25,000 Indians in Hong Kong. And to play a role against 6 million people, we have not much to contribute except to do more trade for Hong Kong.
But under the Basic Law, the luxury of deciding whether to become a senior government figure or politician has been denied to all those who are not of ethnic Chinese descent. Former Transport Secretary Hyder Barma, who's Indian, resigned his post when it became clear it was unlikely he would be allowed to carry on. It's unclear whether people who are not of ethnic Chinese descent can apply for an SAR passport. The Indian Chamber of Commerce has been lobbying China to amend that policy.
We will be fully integrated into Hong Kong society if we were treated exactly the same as the locals. And for those of us in the community who have been here for more than one generation and who have, grew up here, who were brought up in Hong Kong, they feel that with an SAR passport they would be treated equally as local members of the community. And since they want to be fully integrated, and they are, basically this is their home, and this is where they want to continue to live and work, an SAR passport would be helpful.
But these policies in the Basic Law alarmed the approximately 9,000 people, mainly from the Indian subcontinent, who feared they may become stateless after the handover. Many people from the Indian subcontinent have long ties with Britain. dating back in some cases to the founding of the colony itself. Britain granted them passports as British Dependent Territory citizens. Under the 1990 British Nationality Act, introduced under Margaret Thatcher's Tory government, only 50,000 heads of families across the whole spectrum of Hong Kong's population were given full British citizenship. Others applied for the British nationals' overseas passports, but this gave them no right of abode in Britain. The Indian Resources Group lobbied the British Parliament to ensure people were not left stateless after the handover. Finally, earlier this year, the government relented, and we were welcomed by one of the main campaigners.
Our case had to be separated from the majority simply because of China's nationality laws and the fact that we were going to be marginalized as a result of the handover. I would rather have not spent 5 years lobbying and perhaps a couple of months. In 1992, when the Indian Resources Group started, this lobby was a dead issue. Nobody had talked about it. Nobody had talked about it for 2 years. We would ideally have liked that to have been resolved in 1992. We were, however, delighted that in 1997 we finally managed to get a resolution.
Another successful sale is being completed in this carpet shop. Its owner, who's of Pakistani origin, has lived here for almost 30 years and says as far as he's concerned, there's nothing to worry about.
It's exciting time. We are all excited. First of all, we are looking forward to this great party. And from then on, we are looking, for things to be as normal.
So it's business as usual for most of the peoples from the Indian subcontinent in Hong Kong. They are looking forward to prosperous times ahead, no matter who's in charge.
That was Claire Penketh with a look at our Indian and Pakistani communities. In about a quarter of an hour, the official handover ceremony will begin when Hong Kong will be handed back to China. For now, Victoria Harbour has been reopened to traffic after the fireworks earlier this evening. Some 2,000 spectators showed up for the event. Meanwhile, a huge crowd remains at the waterfront in Tsim Sha Tsui. Teresa